the spacecraft, I should say, as we go down to the final seconds.
Firing chain is
launch.
armed.
15.
Go for main engine start. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. The final liftoff of Atlantis on the shoulders of the space shuttle. America will continue the dream.
Roger roll, Atlantis. Houston now controlling the flight of Atlantis. The space shuttle spreads its wings one final time for the start of a sentimental journey into history. 24 seconds into the flight, roll program complete. Atlantis now heads down, wings level on the proper alignment for its 8.5-minute ride to orbit. 4.5 million pounds of hardware and humans taking aim on the International Space Station. 40 seconds into the flight, the three liquid fuel main engines throttling back to 72% of rated performance in the bucket, reducing stress on the shuttle as it goes transonic for the final time.
Breaking the sound barrier now.
Engines now revving up, standing by for the throttle up call.
Atlantis, go and throttle up, no action, DT.
Nothing like it in the world. Bill Harwood, what are we seeing now?
We have a camera on the side of the external tank that they beam down to show the view from the orbiter itself. They're obviously looking for any signs of foam insulation that might come off during the ascent. That could pose a debris threat to the shuttle. Nothing obvious in the early moments of flight. There was a warning alarm for a pressure alarm in the cockpit. Mission Control told them no problem on that, no action required. So far, so good.
Shuttle astronaut Steve Robinson, what's going on in there at this moment? You've done this 4 times.
Well, I wish I were on there right now, but those guys are having the time of their life, and they're focused as human beings can possibly be. They had an alarm go off that turns out to be a transducer on the cabin pressure. And so Mission Control radioed up, told them not to worry about it.
There go the solid rocket boosters jettisoning after 2 minutes of flight.
Scott, they're up about 30 miles in altitude right now, going about a mile a minute already. A mile a second, I should say, already.
The space shuttle running now on its 3 main engines, draining the fuel out of that enormous fuel tank, which we will also see separate from the orbiter here in just a few minutes.
Atlantis kicking on its afterburners for 1 minute.
Steve, everything looks safe, going well?
Look beautiful, look fantastic, just like a space shuttle launch.
Atlantis, 2-engine foul.
2-engine foul.
That call
Bob Orr is here at the Kennedy Space Center with us, up on the roof of this structure, which just shook like it was in an earthquake. Bob Orr, what are you seeing there?
Scott, this never gets old. I have to tell you, when you're on the roof, you feel a shuttle launch more than see it. We had a relatively low cloud cover, and as the shuttle lifted off, it was a spectacular view here. It drew applause from everyone outside. It disappeared quickly into the clouds, but we could still feel the vibration. It was a majestic launch, and it was one that just 3 hours ago that didn't look possible. But so far, everything is going great, Scott. It's a big day and a good news day here at Kennedy Space Center.
An estimated 750,000 people have come to this part of Central Florida to see this spectacle. Kelly Kobiea is out there with some of them. Kelly, what do they say?
Scott, there were a series of cheers when the shuttle went up, when you saw that big flame out here 12 miles away from the launch pad. Another cheer when you heard the rumble of the engines, and then the crowd gave one final round of applause for the shuttle program as that shuttle disappeared up into the clouds. People here maybe wiped away a tear or two, but mostly it was smiles, picture taking, and lots of applause.
We are 4 minutes after liftoff. At this point, they are very likely heading all the way to orbit. They have passed the point that they would land in Europe if there was a problem with the space shuttle main engines. So far, no sign of any problems of any kind on this mission. What happens next, Steve Robinson?
Just listening to NASA, Rob Navius there describing it well. The solid rocket boosters came off, and now they're in a very smooth portion of the ascent. The whole shuttle is losing weight as it uses up fuel, and so the G's are building up on the crew and on the vehicle, and so they're being pressed into their seats more and more, and looking forward to getting above the atmosphere, rolling heads up, and then what happens is the shuttle goes up, and then turns over this way to go fast to reach orbital velocity. That's what's happening.
Well, we can only experience it live one time, but the magic of television is we can look at it again and again, and I'd like to see it one more time. We'll re-rack the tape and have a look at the launch. Here it was just 5 minutes ago.
1-0 and liftoff, the final liftoff of Atlantis on the shoulders of the space shuttle. America will continue the dream.
Roger roll, Atlantis.
Houston now controlling the flight of Atlantis. The space shuttle spreads its wings one final time for the start of a sentimental journey into history.
Bill Harwood, there is nothing like this. There is nothing like this on the drawing boards. We are not likely to see a spacecraft of this size, complexity, and capability, perhaps in our lifetimes.
No, we're really not. I was just thinking, watching it come off the pad, that I'm never going to see that again. And we're all so used to it. The shuttle is almost iconic in this country in terms of that winged orbiter that we're all so used to, and we're not going to see it again. It's quite a moment.
Steve, you have flown on 4 shuttle